call to order. The minutes were sent out by Stephanie, and Stephanie, did you receive any corrections?
I did receive one comment from Susan requesting that I add the notation that not only did we need current interior photos for 431 McGee, but we also needed current exterior photos. And I made that change in the minutes.
Okay.
That's it.
Are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes of December 15th? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Vicky makes a motion to approve. I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, raise your hand. Okay, very good. Okay, we have several guests present, and what we'll do is proceed in the order of the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is the cottage demolitions at the CPI location, 235 East Montauk Highway. And we have Bob Strata here to make a presentation. And Bob, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, thank you, Ed.
Okay.
Uh,
I will try, by the way, I will try to bring up your report on a share screen.
That would be helpful if you can do that.
Okay.
I started going back on this project, and I realized that February 22nd of next month is the end of the 5th year that we've been working on this. So yeah, there's a great shot. Thank you. So the collaborative effort with the town and with Reckler Equity began in February of 2016. And back then, the focus was, of course, on the inn and Bottomley's design after the 1922 fire, and focusing on nuanced architectural details. And we always knew we'd get to the cottages at some point. If you go through the report, if you go on to the next couple of pages, if you can, Ed, there, as you start with those images.
Let me see if I can shrink the image.
Yeah, that even just staying right on this for a moment. What you're looking at here are pictures that I took in 2017. And back in 2017, the cottages were, of course, not in very good condition. There was not a lot of effort given to putting together any proposed restoration plan at that time. I mean, it became serious matter later, but we built this part of our report on a Schmidt engineering report, which was authorized and took place many years before that. And as I look through Schmidt's photographs and I look through my photographs from 2017, and you get to the photographs that I took just about 6 weeks ago, and you can see the relationship of the deterioration of all of the 5 cottages, and the extent to which the town had recognized that they would authorize Reckler to recreate the cottages, faithfully sticking to the design of the exteriors. But the original thought was that, well, maybe they can keep the foundations. Maybe the foundations would work. Well, if you move forward now Ed, if you don't mind going to the photographs taken in November. This is all 17. Ed, I'm sorry, could you go back a couple of images to that front door? That, right there. So this is Cottage 5. Now, Cottage 5 is the one that's closest to Montauk Highway, has a lot of interesting characteristics. And the point I'm trying to make here is that here is this original entrance with a 6-panel door. It's consistent with Bottomley's design of the inn in 1922. When you look at Reckler's plan for the recreation of Cottage 5, it captures this completely. In other words, they're faithfully recreating this detail and all of the details. So now if we can just go on to the photographs taken in November of 2020. So this is the layout, if you want to stop here just for a moment. What you'll see are the 5 cottages, the relationship to Montauk Highway and to the inn, as well as to the railroad. Cottage 1 is the one on the top of that photograph, closest to the railroad tracks. Cottage 5 is the one closest to Montauk Highway. That one, yes. So if we can just go on to the 2020 images. That's the layout. So here we are. So here I mentioned that, you know, we refer to the Schmidt engineering report in 2007, refer to my report and photographs 10 years later. And so here we are nearly 4 years later. And these are the photographs that I've taken just 6-8 weeks ago. If you could just go through those and you'll have a look at the exteriors. Again, that's Cottage 1, closest to the railroad tracks. Cottage 2, closer to that. And that, compare that, if you just go back a second, Ed, please. The photograph on the bottom, the west elevation of Cottage 4, contrast that with the inn today. Thank you. So if you would just keep going to the Cottage 5. So there's Cottage 5. It's in worse shape than its last examination. These are the plans that Reckler Equity has with Arrow Street architectural firm in Boston prepared that reflect the recreation of the cottages. What's changed is that the foundations can no longer support this work. That Reckler's recommendation, and we confirm that we agree with this, is to start from new foundations. To that point, we decided to get yet another opinion, and we turned to an engineering firm to do just that. And in this package, at the next to last page, again, these are all the plans that have been thoroughly prepared. That letter, thank you. This is a letter from Anthony Tarantino, basically verifying the idea that to build on the existing foundations would be very problematic. And so our recommendation, which I think you'll find on the next page, is that and take a look at that, that's the inn today. If you follow the process, starting with the inn, and you see the commitment to the integrity of the reinvention of Canoe Place in keeping with strict architectural details of the 1922 version that Bottomley designed. You know, it's all embodied here, down to the window details, down to the masonry work and the chimneys. You know, there's no variation here. That same thinking will apply to the cottages, that the cottages will be recreated the same way. It's just that they need to do it, including new masonry foundations. And that's why we're here today. Our recommendation that we urge you to consider is to permit the renovation work to begin on the cottages, knowing that they would have to go on new concrete foundations.
Thank you. I did also see your presentation about 6 weeks ago or so to the planning board, basically outlining this very project as well. So, you know, I was already kind of familiar with how the deteriorated condition of the cottages had already gotten so extensive. Susan, did you have
Yeah, I
something
have
to
a couple
say?
questions. I looked at the AYBs at the town website, but it's a little confusing because they're doubles of a lot of them. One was 1750, one was 1890. I assume that has nothing to do with the cottages. There were about 4 of them were 1935 and one was 1915. I assume you're saying that they're all around 1920 then? Is that true?
This is Bottomley's work, and the fire was in 1922. At that time, William Lawrence Bottomley was working in Southampton, in the village particularly, doing colonial revival architecture, and he was just awarded the contract for the design of the new Southampton Town Hall, which we now see as various retail applications go in and out of it on the corner of North Main Street and Hampton Road. So Bottomley was very active in the community. And when the fire occurred, he was chosen to recreate the inn, and along the way, the cottages were part of this.
Okay, the
Oh,
cottages were done about that same time then.
Yes, you're not going to find anything before that period
Well,
that's
I don't think so, but
truly
I
accurate.
just
Yeah.
was just looking at what I read. And that was my one question. The other, I just passed it yesterday on the way home from Santa Marie's, and they, needless to say, it's quite impressive, the inn, and which makes the cottages look, you know, a number of them, of course, look like they're in number 5 looked like it was in the best condition from the road.
Yes.
My 5 seconds passing, that one look, it stood out as being in better condition. And looking at your pictures, number 3, is there any way to save any of one of them partially?
I think the plan to recreate them faithfully is really in everyone's best interest.
I
When
just
you
asked
look
the
at
question.
when you look at the materials up close, when you go to the site, and I'd be happy to meet any of you there at the site.
I trust your judgment.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I just made my assessment, you know, from the
Sure.
road, and I know that is no
But
way
I'd be happy
do
to
it.
meet. I'd be happy to meet you there.
I trust your judgment. I trust your judgment.
It's you know, when I think of these past 5 years, it's been exciting. We've gone from kind of depressing to exciting.
Yeah.
And I think the ultimate winner in this entire project is going to be the community. I mean, everyone, whether I'm standing in line at Scotto's or, I mean, someone always wants to talk about the Canoe Place Inn. So it's going to be great. When I think of the history, when I think of the meetings, when I think of the Tammany Hall characters who kind of occupied Cottage 5 at one point, when you think of the governor holding meetings there, and it's the cottages have a wonderful history, and it would be nice to to see them done as well as the inn is done.
Is the in the reconstruction of the cottages, will there be a label or sign on the cottage in some way to say that it is a historic reproduction and not
Yes.
part of the original?
Yes, but I do want you to know that even in the documenting of that, there's something I'd like to read just from the National Trust. And that's simply one paragraph. When structures have suffered from deterioration and neglect, they strongly support that a building be demolished. Any present condition which shows degrees of deterioration, including serious mold infestation, which all of these buildings have, but at the same time, they're also, the fabric, the wood itself is deteriorating to the point where demolition is necessary to protect public health and safety. That clause alone would apply to what's been asked to take place here as a matter of public safety. So yes, we can, I'm sure that identification could be made that it's recreated to exact standards of what was originally here. I wonder if you might also like to include some of the history in the cottages, like we were talking about different New York politicians and different people who actually spent time in the cottages. Could be an interesting way to continue to tell the story. I know something like that is planned for the inn itself, so.
Further comments or questions?
I just have one quick one. Taking a look at some of those photographs, particularly from 2017, it looks like we have ACM shingles on the exterior of these structures. I assume that the reconstruction of these structures is not going to go so far as to restore ACMs to the exterior.
No, nor would we use, texture 111 anywhere. And you see it in some places on the interior. The reason why I included Arrow Street's drawings in my presentation and in the documentation is to show you just how seriously everyone is taking the recreation of the new structures based on what is there now. And that's indeed what's taken place. That's what they've done.
Will they be the same size or
It's
larger?
identical. No.
Okay.
The part of the reason why we thought we could build them on the existing foundation was that it would
Okay, right.
define the building, just like the inn itself, the inn conforms to the original footprint of the building. The building envelope is unchanged. These 5 building envelopes will be unchanged.
So,
But they'll be built to code. That's the thing. Rebar, reinforced concrete.
I'm not sure of the approval elements here that go into what we're supposed to do. Let me just check here.
Ed, it's not landmarked,
Right.
so we don't have that complication.
Right, but is it, this is a National Register, once a National Register building?
No, none of the cottages.
Okay. All right. So the basic question then is whether we have any objection to the demolition of the 5 cottages in order to see them reconstructed in the exact manner that has been proposed.
Yes.
Is there any opinion to the contrary?
Nope.
Okay, without any other kinds of concerns, we will send back our form to say that we have no objection. So that would serve the, let me just make sure here in terms of the paperwork that was provided. It's just a demo application that was made,
Yes.
right? Okay, yeah,
Yep.
so we'll send it back with a no objection back to the building department.
Thank you.
Thanks for the very detailed presentation, and
Thank you, ma'am.
it's was a complicated project, but I think we're down to the place of making some simple decisions.
Not quite down to the nub, but we're getting there. Thank you all very much.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Good to
you,
see you.
Robert.
Stay well.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Hi, Martha. Okay, glad to see you. Okay, we can return to our agenda, which the next agenda item was it 8 Jagger?
Yeah. Do we have any other guests?
Yeah, who should I bring in on that?
Yeah, Daniel Tomlinson is here for 149 South Country.
Okay,
I
well,
think.
okay, let's go to that.
Hello,
discussion then.
Daniel Tomlinson here.
Okay, Bill and Stephanie, you kind of been involved with this discussion?
Yes. Make sure I'm unmuted here. Yes, good. So we have before us an application to designate 149 South Country Road, or to make a recommendation at this point as to whether it's landmarkable, 149 South Country Road in Remsenburg. And the applicant's objective, and the applicant is the owner, is to make sure that the property is worthy of landmarking, and that we could make that recommendation to the town board such that they can proceed to seek an easement, a facade easement from CPF. So that is the matter at hand here. I've circulated a report concerning the history of the property and its condition and the proposed plans for renovation of the house. We have been informed it is the applicant's intent to conduct renovations once the property is landmarked, to get their facade easement, and then to resell the property as for residential use. So the property has been determined in previous studies to be worthy of landmarking, both in the town's 2014 survey of historic resources, and New York State SHPO has determined that the building is potentially eligible for listing on the New York State and National Registers of Historic Places. The property is situated on the west side of South Country Road at the intersection with Remsen Lane, which appears to have been, at least the south, or the north end of it here, appears to have originated as a driveway for the property many years ago. Historic map information documents that the house doesn't appear to have been present or may not have been present in 1797, but it is clearly shown on the 1853 and subsequent maps. Property appears to have originally been purchased by a member of the Tuttle family, James Tuttle, who came from Wading River and married Temperance Ann Wells of Southold. They had 15 children, all of whom were born either in Cutchogue or in Speonk between 1777 and 1805. either they or their eldest child, who was also named James Tuttle, most likely built the house, which is reported to have been constructed in 1820 originally. And what Bill and I saw in the house is consistent with that age in terms of the timber frame in the structure and some of the internal features. It then passed through multiple generations of Tuttle family members, including an Austin Tuttle, George Washington Tuttle, and then most recently Willis Byron Tuttle and his wife Jessie Hamilton Holden Tuttle. Willis is perhaps, because of his more recent age, the best known of these Tuttles. He was a graduate of the Cornell School of Agriculture. He became a correspondent for the Brooklyn Eagle and the New York Tribune. He was the editor of the West Hampton Press, later known as the Hampton Chronicle, and the West Hampton edition, or the Western edition of the Southampton Press. And I remember reading as a child his reminiscences columns of the old days in Remsenburg. He also wrote for the Riverhead News Review. He was locally a charter member of the Remsenburg Association, an elder in the Presbyterian Church, and a member of the War Memorial Committee, and responsible for the erection of our War Memorial here in 1948 following World War II. So it has a long history of Tuttle family ownership. Some of the earlier Tuttles were farmers, and probably the most well-known of those was George Tuttle, who apparently sought to improve the farm, had a number of farm buildings constructed during his tenure at the property, which was in the early 1900s. And there remains two of the agricultural buildings for the property. One is on the property itself. It is a small shed in the back that has most recently been used apparently as a pool house. And there is the former barn that is no longer on this property. It's on the lot directly behind, which you can kind of see in the upper left of that photo. So Bill and I took a look at the property with the owners several weeks back, and there are photographs in there documenting the appearance of all four sides of the structure. The structure looks essentially as I have always known the structure. The only thing that's different these days is the most recent roof that was put on there is a sort of gray-blue color. For many, many years, the roof was a red asphalt shingle roof. The shutters are normally on the front of the house are not on the structure right now. They are being repaired, and we've been informed that they are going to be returned to the structure. The windows all appear to be original to their date of construction. There are 9 over 6 windows on the first story. If you look, Ed, can you pull up the report showing the photos of the property?
I'm not sure I can.
Okay, I can
Look
just
that-
talk.
Go ahead.
I can just talk you through it. The structure appears to have been added on to a number of times, but all of the features on the structure that we looked at, I recall being there the entire time I've known the structure since I grew up here. There is an original volume on the northern end of the structure that has a timber frame. The similar volume on the south end of the structure in the first story has a fully dimensional sawn lumber frame. And you could see at one place the join between these two types of framing in the structure, because some of the wall materials have been removed, some of the ceiling materials have been removed. The upstairs dormers are likely a later addition, not original to the structure. And then there are several porches, one on the south side, one on the front side, and a couple on the back. There's also a sort of shed structure attached to the back of the building. These, the exterior materials appear to be generally in good condition, although some of the materials are in the process of being repaired. Some of the ones that are more vulnerable, such as the supporting members for the wooden porches. And there's several newer appurtenances like a metal Bilco door on the cellar in the back, and a sliding glass door. We've been informed that these are going to be replaced with more period appropriate or at least congenial elements. This house is reported to have a round brick cellar. When we did the site inspection, it had recently snowed and things were pretty iced up, so we couldn't actually get in the basement at that point in time. So this house is in, I think, very good condition. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about briefly is the shed in the back. The shed's a fascinating little structure. It appears to have likely original wood shingles on the exterior that they're face nailed, original board doors with hardware. The framing inside, we could see through a window. It appears to be hand hewn, perhaps of the same vintage as the original volume of the house. So it is proposed to retain this structure as well, including essentially its exterior appearance and materials. The rehabilitation plans for this property were explained to us this way. They do not plan any additions or subtractions to the dwelling or the shed volumes. So nothing to be stuck on or removed relative to the volumes that are there. The historic or period appropriate exterior materials, including all windows, siding, trim, and doors, are going to be retained and repaired as needed on both the dwelling and the shed. The shutters that have been removed are going to be repaired or replaced as needed and restored to the front of the dwelling. And all the exterior colors, including the paint, the roof, the shutters, etc., will remain as at present. They are going to replace certain deteriorated or out of character materials, deteriorated materials being the porch foundations, and the out of character materials being the triple track storm windows and screens and a rear sliding glass door and the metal Bilco door. These are going to be replaced with newer materials for repair purposes, or with appropriate materials to enhance the historic appearance of the house. There are going to be some modifications to the interior, but they're going to retain the historic materials in large part, and some of the framing, particularly the historic framing on the western volume, is going to be left visible. As far as the landscaping goes, there were a number of large trees near the house that have been removed. That makes sense from a safety perspective. There was a very overgrown privet hedge around the front and side of the house. That's been cut down to a more reasonable size, which will enhance the visibility of the dwelling. And then there's some inappropriate foundation plantings that are going to be replaced with something that is more period appropriate. The one major change that there's going to be to this property is that there will be a 2-car garage with a workshop added. This building will be in within the circular driveway area adjoining Remsen Lane. It is going to partially block the view of the dwelling from Remsen Lane, but it will not obstruct the view of the dwelling from South Country Road. And this building is supposed to be a style that's commensurate or copacetic with the style of the current building. It's going to have 2 dormers at the 2nd story. The garage doors are going to face the dwelling, so they will not be readily visible. And it's going to be a combination of cedar shake and board and batten siding on the exterior, with the windows similar in style to the existing dwelling windows. Overall, in my opinion, the rehabilitation plans are certainly going to extend the life of this structure. They're going to make it more habitable for a residential perspective. And I don't think they're going to detract from the historic character of this building or property in any way. It appeared to me that this property possesses 4 of the criteria for consideration as a landmark under our town code. And I recommend that we refer this or send a letter to the town board indicating that we feel that the property is landmarkable. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a question that doesn't need to be really answered tonight, but if it is landmarked, will it have a certain name for the landmark?
It would seem to me that it would be appropriate to be called the Tuttle House.
A particular Tuttle or the Tuttle family house?
I would call it a Tuttle family house because, as you probably know, we have multiple Tuttle families and including another landmark in this community that originated as a Tuttle family house. No direct relationship here with this particular family. I'm a little hesitant to refer to it as the Willis Tuttle House because it was actually multiple generations of his family that, were part of the whole story here.
Well, it's just something, I think some thought has to be given to it if down the road this whole sequence of events takes place. And, there may not be the perfect answer for labeling it as a particular, in a particular way as the landmark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any
I had a question for Stephanie. You did a wonderful job explaining all the details of what was going to be proposed, but if and when that construction is going to take place, will there be a construction application for that?
There would need to, if it's
And a
landmarked,
COA or whatever, I mean, both.
right, if it's landmarked before the construction takes place, then they would need to go through the COA process for the proposed construction. As a practical matter, a number of things are going on now for which a building permit is not apparently required. So some of this is in progress. If the work is done, the work anyway that requires a permit is done before the landmarking, then they would need a construction permit.
That's all. I didn't think we were doing it in a package, so that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the key in my mind is the terms of the easement and what is considered non-negotiable. I think that is probably of more importance here.
We aren't determining that tonight, are we? Or are we?
No, we're not determining that tonight, but if they go forward with the easement process, we will need to be involved with that
Exactly.
to make sure that the things that we want to see remain do indeed remain.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, in order to communicate the attitude of the Landmarks Board, we ought to have a motion voted on that we deem it landmark, we deem its merits as a town of Southampton landmark, and are willing to do so given whatever other conditions are to be met.
Yeah. I think this is kind of similar to what we did for 121 South Road.
Yes, and we also did one for Skull Hole Road too, in terms of
Yeah.
Potential landmark action. So is there a motion to deem this as a site that would merit landmark designation should the application be made? Somebody going to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Bill makes the motion. And is there a second? Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 Okay, fine, thank you. Okay, So we will proceed.
I'd be
And
happy to draft up the letter, Ed, and probably have you and Bill take a look at it to make sure it covers what we need to cover.
okay, fine. Thank you, Stephanie. That would be helpful too. Okay.
Ed, don't we already have an application for a landmark?
It's not a, it is an application form, but we don't want to make the recommendation that it be landmarked now. What we want to do is make a recommendation that we feel it is landmarkable so that they can proceed to negotiate an easement. Because that's, the two things need to go forward together to make this process work for this property.
Okay.
So are we recommending the easement today, or is that a separate process?
That's a separate process.
Okay, we'll do that at the same time we do the terms. Okay,
Right.
is-
I think though, there needs to be some communication between us and CPF so that they understand that we want to be involved in the negotiation of the terms.
that's fine.
Okay. All right, so with that out of the way, who else do we have as guests here for, we
I
have,
think Kyle wants to speak.
well, was Kyle here for 149?
Yeah.
I was here, yeah.
Yeah,
I've been trying to let him in for a while now.
oh, okay,
I don't see him now.
okay.
They got what they want.
Okay.
Yes, and that also was Daniel Tomlinson, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I was here. I think everything sounds good. Carl Benacasa was also logging in on
Yeah,
this.
he's here.
I don't know if he had anything to add, but I
I'll
think
let him in.
everything sounded pretty good to me.
I'll let him in right now.
And I thank you for your considerations and hoping to get this landmarked.
Okay, very good. Thanks for the submission, and we see what the Community Preservation Department will want to do down the road.
Great,
How about
thank
that,
you.
Carl.
Good evening. Can I just get clarity on the process going forward? Thank you.
Ask your question.
Can I get clarity on the process going forward from this point?
Well, we will write a letter to the Community Preservation Department saying that we have received an inquiry from the owner with respect to the landmark worthiness of the structure, and that we, after looking at the November 3rd, 2020 report that Stephanie submitted, that we have found it worthy, and that the applicant has indicated an interest in pursuing an easement on that basis. And then we'll send you a copy, or we'll send a copy.
Yeah.
And when that's done, that will be the occasion when you can proceed to make an inquiry to the Community Preservation Department, because they'll have knowledge of what our opinion is.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And would you have an issue if we reached out in the interim directly to Lisa Combray?
No, not at all. And I mean, she can, if this is being recorded, she can check the recording and determine that for herself.
Okay, great.
And I
Thank you.
expect our letter will go out this week or at the very latest early next week. So there shouldn't be any significant delay in our response.
Okay, very good.
Hi, board.
All right.
We're here from H. Jagger. I don't know.
Okay, I think we are ready to move on to 8 Jagger Lane, the demolition proposal. Bill, you submitted a report.
Yes. This is sort of a revisiting of this site in February 2020. We reviewed this as a construction application to lift the house, to raise it, to make it conforming to FEMA and New York State's 2 feet of freeboard. And at that time, they were going to take 2 porches that had been added to the house, covered porches, and close them as part of the house, add 2 additions with shed roofs to them. And they had already started new roof, new windows and doors, interior framing, had received a stop work order. And I guess that's how they ended up at the building department and coming to us. I updated the photographs in my previous report. Basically, the house looks exactly as it did last January when I took the first set of photographs. Other than some plywood that appeared on sort of the south side in those pictures. Yep, you can see the plywood in the lower picture. Other than that, and the portalab that appeared there, everything is really exactly the same. Nothing's been done in the last year. We did now receive a second application, this time for a demolition application to demolish the entire house and build a new house on the site. So we had reviewed it last year. We approved that application. Basically, when the house was completed from that renovation, it would have been all new windows and doors, roofing, siding, the porches enclosed, other additions added on. There really would have been no historic fabric left on the house. We did approve it. This is part of the original Jagger property down here. Very prominent family in this area. The property is not in the AKRF. It's not in the Hamlet Heritage Report for Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, West Hampton. The AYB in the town records is 1900. The maps are difficult. There's a cluster of houses in this area. It's hard to pinpoint whether this is one of them or not, though looking at the construction of it, it does appear like early 1900s. So I would think a 1900 date is feasible. Knowing that we were losing all the historic fabric on it before, we did approve it last year. I didn't object to demolishing it now. There was some disrepair to it a year ago. It's still there. This is on a flag lot, although the area between the house and the street is not heavily vegetated. You can see it from the street. It isn't highly visible, but you do see it now, and you will see the new house when it appears. But I had no objection to it being demolished, removed, and replaced with the other house.
Hi, I'm Agina Verdun, DKR Shores, here to represent the application. The owners are also on. They said hi at the beginning. I appear before you getting this sort of versus tail end, 8/10 through the entire application process. Through the process down to the wire, submitted the application to raise and reno and build a 2nd-story addition, keeping and modeling with the same style of the existing house. That application got denied by the building department, and they asked for us to demolish the residence. This came right from Dennis O'Rourke. So this is why we're here tonight.
Did they give a reason why they objected to the application and why it should be demolished?
We weren't saving enough of the structure to be for it to be considered a raise and reno. That was it. He didn't say percentage, but normally New York State residential code, it's 50%. I think they also were concerned with possibly meeting the New York State new 2020 residential codes, and be it having 2x4 framing, it's very, very difficult to meet those codes and energy requirements with the existing framing. So I think they just asked because it was probably feasible. I had the same question at the beginning of the application. I had a lot of questions upon taking the project in general But I did proceed as directed with the current, I should say the formerly current application of the raise and reno and additions. And like I said, we were denied with building department because we weren't saving enough of the original structure. So I respectfully ask the board to consider no objection again. We did our best. We tried thoroughly, right down to the end, fought and bantering back and forth with the building department actually. And they had come to the conclusion that they would like us to demo the residence.
Any other comments that board members might want to be offered? Bill, your recommendation is no objection?
Yes.
And from what I've seen, I agree. Is there any other concern of the board members present? If not, we'll file with the building department that we have no objection to the demolition.
Thank you, board. I appreciate it. And Janet,
Thank you, board. We
everybody, sorry
appreciate
for the
it.
confusion.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you for the information. It's always helpful to get sometimes background and context for what's going on.
It was very disappointing actually to get down to the wire thinking I'm going to hand these people a building permit and then be rejected for this down at the end after they tried so hard. 2 years they wasted working on this. So I apologize to the board for the confusion and the rush in getting this application in, but it was sheer panic when I got that decision from Dennis O'Rourke.
Okay, well, thank you then.
Thank you
you so
all.
much.
All right.
Everybody stay well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will go back to our agenda items here. The next one would be 431 McGee Street, Tuckahoe or Southampton, which Susan, you had done something here.
Anyone I should let in?
I don't know if anybody, I don't know if anybody would be representing 431.
Okay.
Okay, I'm now unmuted.
Okay.
Yes, we reviewed this same structure, the same property in, I think it was March, well, it was submitted in March and we reviewed it in May 2020. And that was just for raising the structure and putting it on a new foundation. And apparently, work obviously continued past that. And there was a stock work order posted on the property and it is dated, I think it was July 28th, 2020. I think some excavation work may have been done past that, but the pictures that I took in on Saturday in January reflect what it looks like today. This property was built by the children or the descendants of a long-time Tuckahoe family. It was built by Marvin Smith, and he was the son of Jenny Hubbard Smith and Hewitt Smith. And he was the grandson of Nathaniel Hubbard, a Methodist minister and sea captain who had the house that used to be located on the grounds of the Southampton Golf Course. I think it was demolished a couple years ago. And it was sold by one of the descendants in 2019. So there are associations with Tuckahoe and Tuckahoe families. And it's also one of a group of a number of small gamble type houses that are on that street and around the corner. But we did not object, of course, putting on the foundation because that was something that would contribute to the longevity of the property. In February 2020, they received a variance from the ZBA to construct a artist studio to the rear, and I don't see any evidence of that. But I doubt that we would get an application because it would be a new structure on a non-landmark property. But while I was doing the review, I did not see a couple of the 1905 barns and sheds. But we're not reviewing that right now. That would have to come back to us. So this is for the construction that has already started on this structure, exterior and interior. And the interior photos that you're looking at were provided by the applicant because I didn't want to walk the ladder plank. Plus I wasn't sure if there was electricity in there. But you can see the work that's taken place. And the one visible thing was if you go up to the first floor is the stairwell. Go up one more, up a little, well, right there, you can, okay, down. It's there you go. It's that third picture in the first row. And if you can go online, you can see the pictures, the real estate pictures that show that staircase and also the center one. So that looks like it's still intact. And that oval window is right up as you go on to the second floor. And that was the one interesting window that was left. And there were also appeared to be other 2/2 double hung windows, mostly on the second floor. The first floor looked like they were replacements. But it shows you what fabric, the minimal amount of fabric that's left, but that window in particular is still there. It will not be there at the end, according to the plans. Trying to think exterior wise, if you skip down toward the end where they have the digital representations, they have basically replacing most everything. I think as far as I can tell, the only thing is going to be left, you're going to see a little bit of that gambrel roof in front on the left and a little bit on the right. And the bay window, but the bay window will have flat roof with metal black standing seam, and the front porch will be metal black standing seam, asphalt on the rest of the roof. The house is going proposed to be stucco. The color and the texture to be determined. The front of the house is like a shutter board. And that's also used, if you enlarge that a little bit, on the windows, decorative, I assume, shutters on one side. Up at the top of that gambrel roof, that is the batten board, just to fill that area in. The chimney will be removed and there'll be a new chimney built at the rear. My recommendation is to object because by the time they finish this house is basically going to be unrecognizable from what it was originally.
I think the added mass to the house is stylistically incompatible with the historic architecture that was originally there.
You know, the mass, they actually had that section on the back at one point. They did have a sort of a sloped roof section. Now it looks like it has a hipped roof. But it's the design and the all of the materials. It's massing wise, there is the Tuckahoe School does have some stucco on it, but that is separate from the rest of the neighborhood that's mostly shingled. but the house is just, it was not demolished, but unrecognizable. Windows, doors,
Yeah,
everything, windows, new doors, nothing
Yeah.
much original.
I agree with you, Susan, that, you know, the house does not look like it is being, it does not look like something that is an integrated whole, and should be, to me, objected to. I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree as well. There's very little historic anything that's being retained here, and the proposed construction is just going to cover up and obliterate everything that's historic about it.
Any other comments from board members about this project?
I don't think they made any attempt whatsoever for any historic significance, any compatibility. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
It's really kind of hard to figure out what their intent was.
I'm not sure. As you say that, it just, even if it somehow it had been shingled and somehow there was the front more or less maintained and the back changed, but it's not really,
No.
Yeah, as you look at the lower photograph, you can still see where the gambrel came around before that addition was put onto the back of the house.
Mhm.
They stepped it in so that the massing of the original house and its roof line would still be pronounced, and then you would recognize the addition. Now it's
obliterated.
all, yes, yep. The other thing that's confusing is that it looks like pairs of windows and doors, but it looks like those are actually like an exterior, perhaps sliding or very large swinging shutters next to each
Yeah.
window.
Yep.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
I thought they were just decorative shutters, but
yeah, sort of an odd choice, but definitely a design that you can't really put a label on. I can't name this at all.
That's rather charitable.
I guess it's
So-
just one of the things that a person who used to be on the landmarks board who had this area, we had followed it while it was for sale, passed it a number of times, and we heard they were proposing an artist studio and keeping the house, we're needless to say, thrilled. And that's not exactly what happened. It didn't really turn out.
So we object to the plans.
Yep.
And do we want to offer criticism of the project in terms of the design and materials being inappropriate to the original concept of the house?
I think I could mention it.
It's also losing the roof line. It's
Yes.
just
And altering the roof
at all.
arrangements. Yeah.
They've, yeah,
Okay.
taken
I'll
any
mention-
charm out of it.
So,
But since
Susan,
it's this far along, my feeling is I feel that we can object and make comments, but I'm not hopeful that.
well, the question is, it does say something about the record and our record
Yes.
as
Oh, no,
well when we
I
make the comments. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. So no, I totally agree with you.
So,
So I will make
Now-
those comments. Also in the comments section, I feel I should note if you go back up to the go back up one where I show you the accessory buildings. Okay, right there you go. This is the one on the right you can barely see from the road. I couldn't figure out what it was, or because this property, the way you can sort of see it with a rear with a foundation, there is a really steep slope that goes clear down to where actually the Mercedes parking lot. So this is almost high up on a hill, the house, and the one on the right is down very, very low. So you can barely see it from the road. But according to the site plan, there had been a shed barn there that was about 12 by 13, and it should have been circa 1905. The one on the left, the person who used to have Tuckahoe took a picture. If you just go up one more, right back to where you were. But you can see it had green, in this picture, it had green, a tarp on it. But we had one picture from the road that showed a shingle barn. The one right behind the house, there was an 8 by 10 metal shed. It's gone, but that's not, I haven't seen a picture of it, but if it says 8 by 10 metal shed, I assume that's what it was. This other one should have been way down where you see, you know, a number of other little things parked, and I'm not sure, I can't tell which it is. But we do have one picture, but they're not there anymore. So the 2 barns and sheds are gone. I feel like I should make a note of that we need to actually, there needs to be a set, we didn't review them here. It would need to be a separate application. If they were going to do, there's the picture from the road with a green tarp, that we would need a separate application for those. They were not covered as part of this review.
Fine.
Okay.
You did a site visit?
Pardon?
You did a site visit here?
Yes, I did. I was there on Saturday.
Okay, and that you should just mention that in, you should just mention that in the response that there was a site visit by Landmarks board member. And did you receive cooperation from the applicant or the applicant's agent?
James, just to let him know that I was going to stop on Friday, but I was actually scheduling COVID vaccines that day, so I went it was Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
So and a few Mason fellas showed up while I was there and picked up some things and left. So he probably knows that I was there that day. It's on this.
Well, I was unaware of how much cooperation, if there was cooperation in the visit, you know, it should be acknowledged in the record.
I showed up and unhooked the little, went through. So there was pretty much an easy entrance, and there wasn't a no trespassing sign, and I had my Landmarks board card. So
okay, good. All right, 38 Far Pond Road, Southampton, a renovation for a 1941 dwelling. I don't think we had a report done for this.
No.
And Vicky, were you going to make comments about this? So, well, let me just see if we can get to 38 Far Pond Road here. This is a corner lot in Shinnecock Hills. The project is to, in part, I believe, elevate a house because it sits very close to water. This is the lot right here.
we're not seeing it. We have the agenda.
You have the agenda? Oh, okay. Let me see if I can get this back. Do you have it now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on the application.
It had an AYB of 1940, and it's not a listed historic resource. But I am not familiar with the area or the property.
Yeah. It appeared to be a rather ordinary looking, one-story house that didn't appear to have anything particularly architecturally interesting about it, and it's simply proposed to have to be raised and to have a second story added on to it with porches. I didn't see anything to object to here.
And that's my opinion as well, Stephanie. You encapsulated my thoughts as well. The neighborhood is not particularly, made up of historic and architecturally distinctive buildings.
I agree.
Any further comments? Then I will undertake to respond on the application. Okay. On Fall Pond Road, no objection. Okay. All right, next on the agenda would be 91 East Diana Road, Hampton Bays. This also is a house that has this is the house right here. Let me get rid of the parcel IDs with the driveway. I think part of it is to deal with an enclosure of a porch, if I recall.
Yep.
And
several other modifications, expansion of a second story.
What's nice is they appear to be keeping those very interesting diamond paned windows.
Let me see if I can bring up the application then.
That new exterior siding and trim, outdoor shower, interior renovations of the kitchen and the bathrooms. New dormer, and that's the one I couldn't figure out where the dormer went. There are a couple shed dormers, but I didn't know where the new ones went.
These diamond style windows.
Yeah, very nice. I think as far as the new dormer, they're extending the existing dormers on the front and the back.
That makes sense.
Yeah, which will actually eliminate a rather period inappropriate skylight, at least in one case.
Right, I think they're keeping a skylight.
Yeah, but they're even putting the diamond pane windows in the new dormer extension, which I found really nice.
Okay, that's where that one-story section is where they would be extending it then, on the left.
I think so. I found no reason to object to this application.
Rather nice fireplace. Any other comments? I'm in agreement with Stephanie. If a response is made, I think a compliment should be made with respect to the compatibility of the renovations with the existing design of the house.
I think that's very appropriate.
Any other comments about it? No objection? Okay, I will undertake to make a response then for the project. And we can close that one. Okay, the 18 Halsey Street, Bridgehampton, proposed addition and renovation. All had a report that I did. I will say that it was one of the toughest mysteries to solve.
Yes.
Very impressive, Ed. It was like a soap opera. It's like
well, I had to track down the lives of 4 people whose lives intersected. Each time one crossed the path of another, they were selling the house. And it was only, it took a lot of time anyway, but I'm glad it's been a long mystery in Bridgehampton about some of the houses that have been moved around to different places and what eventually happened to them. So in any case, let me just see if I can bring up the application. By the way, the 2 houses that were involved, we actually have had you see the 2 houses here. This is 18 Halsey Street. And this was the other house that was moved, 14 Halsey Street, from Main Street, Bridgehampton, at the same time by the person who developed this particular section of the hamlet there. I found that the house, because it has been altered, there have been additions to it. I think there was an addition even made in the 1970s to the house, according to the town records. That the proposed additions that were there, let me see if I can get the application here. This is the exterior of the house. I think some of this you can see is not original in terms of its character. The garage has kind of been made into a pool house of sorts. The added volume is to have a flat roof of sorts, with a lot of windowing. But given the fact that the house is relatively obscure, to say the least, nobody really can see the house. If I may find the, see if I can find the 18 Halsey here. Okay, so you see the house here. This is the house, but it's very well screened from the road, so that you can't.
We're looking at the plans.
You're looking at the plans yet? Okay, let me, all right, try. You see it now?
No, still plans.
Still the plans, okay, let me try this again here.
Yes,
Okay. So you see it now?
yes.
This is
Yeah.
the house right here. It's masked behind a lot of landscape screening. And basically, it's invisible to anybody. This is a dead-end street. And there's no traffic on it. There's no sidewalks. Nobody walks down it. So it's not a question of it being a familiar architectural object for anybody in the community. So my sentiment was that as much as there is a different style to the addition to make added living room, and they're doing some work below ground, that there really wasn't anything to strongly object to.
Ned, could you point on there where the addition's going to go from looking at from the overhead?
The addition is going to go on this side, I believe, here.
Okay.
And they're removing some of the pergola elements that exist on the house. Let's see if I can get the picture here that, yeah, they're removing the and putting an exterior. They're changing the exterior patio arrangements on the property as well. As you can see, also this house has been subject to the houses in the neighborhood.
The one that you're
been-
pointing to, we reviewed that one, as I remember, and objected. It was
Very good memory. Yes, as somebody wanted to build a bigger house on a very small parcel, and that has been somewhat a characteristic of a lot of activity in the Bridgehampton residential neighborhoods over the past 4 or 5 years. That's taking place. But this house, to the degree that it can be preserved in whatever form, I thought the modernization, would give incentive to keep the building as it is in its present character. So, any comments? Martha, are you familiar with the building?
I know the street. I know people on the street. You can't really see the building. You know, I have to say, I don't think that it's particularly in keeping, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as bad as the last one. So I'm inclined not to object to make the house livable, but as long as you can't really see it, it's not heavily traveled.
So any other comments? If not, then I'll respond to the building department. No objection.
Do you have any?
Mention this. You were going to mention something, Martha?
Do you have any comments about it, Ed? Do you think it should be done?
Well, I thought that they had some plans on the addition to have some vertical planking on the exterior, which I thought would mismatch the horizontal lines of the shingle character of the house, and that you know, the way the design is, they have they have a lot of windows with very small sides to the windows in terms of, I don't know if I can get the plans back. And so it doesn't provide a great deal of probably options in terms of the exterior cladding in the building. It was not something that I called attention to it because it just seemed to be a clashing of the lines.
So are we
aesthetic
going to
lines.
tell them that? Because that would make sense what you're saying as a design thing. It's not in keeping, is it?
Well, it's not. It may be in keeping. It partly, you know, it depends on what color it is. It depends on how much contrast there is in terms of the line that you might observe. But given that it's going to be fairly unobservable anyway by public vision, you know, to me it was a modest aesthetic question that, you know, I was not really thinking it was a big deal. I don't know
Well,
if anybody else.
On the landscaping though, I mean, that's something that can always be changed. So if we have an objection to just, if they could look at it visually as if,
Well, I will put a comment in that second thought should be given to the nature of the exterior cladding on the proposed addition.
okay. I don't mind.
Any other comments? We can close this. Okay.
That wouldn't have anything to do with near where we're trying to landmark the main street, because Newman Street runs parallel behind, doesn't it? So,
That's true. Mostly the concern has been to landmark the commercial structures on Main Street, and this is behind the commercial district. However, you know, there is the possibility always too of a historic district being formed that would include the neighborhood as well, and that might be something to also mention in the response.
okay.
Okay, let's see if I can bring up and I forgot what the agenda is here.
Certificate of appropriateness for your, for our topping Nathaniel Rogers House.
Oh, the Nathaniel Rogers House. Okay. Construction is still ongoing, and the application by the Community Preservation Department would still need to be done at the point at which it's completed. Referrals, we don't have any. We've already done 149 South Country Road. 146 South Road is still no information there, nor is there anything on 680 Ocean Road. The Bridgehampton Historic District is something that will be put on hold given some other discussions that have taken place in recent times, and which maybe we'll get a chance to talk about after we get through the remaining elements of the agenda. 173 Davids Lane, I don't think we have any information on that at all. During the past month, an inquiry was made with respect to how the how the connection is to be maintained between the Landmarks Board and the Building Department application procedure. Bill had received an inquiry from someone with respect to being able to approach and get some action from the Landmarks Board independent of having to file an application with the Building Department for construction or other events. Bill, did I sum up that correctly?
Yes, a couple of architects had contacted me just saying that in the past, they had been able to submit the landmarks application early on. I did see what David Wilcox kind of sent to us was the actual procedure, where it does appear that it is supposed to go in with the building department application, the permit application itself, but didn't know if it was something we could check into. It does add 45 days to the permit process. It also makes it so that you can't, if you're going to go to landmarks, you can't expedite a permit. And the building department had created recently an expedited process where instead of taking 5 or 6 weeks to get a building permit, they were basically guaranteeing them within 2 weeks. So, you know, a lot of the clients are in a hurry, as you know, seems to always be the way. But I didn't know if this was something that, you know, we could bring to the attention of the building department and perhaps make a change to it. Because it does seem that if we can get to the clients a little more at the beginning of the process, a little more early on, we have an opportunity to give them some input that perhaps they would follow. By the time they've gotten their construction drawings done, their Board of Health approval, Conservation Board approval, 3D renderings finished, and have paid the architects, and they've waited a long time. By the time we get done with our process at the end of it all, I think our recommendations fall on deaf ears. So I was just thinking if we could get it back to the other sort of process, even though that may have not been by the letter or by the book, it would help us out.
One of the things that I would be concerned about myself is getting too much of a process where there's a disconnect between what we may be seeing and then what may be actually presented to the building department down the road.
Yes.
In the past, we have had this kind of periodically a backdoor approach to proposals, and sometimes we've seen things that have not turned out the way in which we thought they should.
Yes.
And so, you know, having, unless we were to re-review what goes to the building department, I think we would be in a position of sometimes granting a blessing to somebody's design without knowing how actually they will show it up at the building department.
Yes, and previously we have seen some applications that came through without a design. Demolition of a house without us knowing exactly what they were going to put back. We've had some, I reviewed one on South Road in West Hampton that was basically sort of a ballpoint pen on a typing paper, kind of a sketch that a homeowner did that really didn't look like you know, what they were really going to build and what they did build. So yeah, I can see your point. Yeah, that they may just hurry to get something to us while they're still in the process of figuring it out, and by the time it gets to us at the end, may be completely different looking. So yeah, I do see your point.
So I don't know if David is still on, but
I'm here.
Oh, and anyway, we did review your memo or your email about this. Do you have any comments, Dave, about the
Yeah,
process?
I think if there's a process that the board wants to recommend a change to, prepare a report, you can submit it to Janice and she'll review it. I don't perceive any great desire to change the process at this point.
Okay. All
That's
right.
not to say that if you want to put something in writing with recommendations that she wouldn't consider it.
Okay, well, at the moment, I think let's see if the temperature diminishes on the boiling pot and watch the process a little bit as it gets back to its original form and see how adjustments might be figured out down the road.
Sounds good.
The engineering report discussion. This is kind of, I don't know if we have disposed of this idea fully, but I don't know if we have any new proposals or ideas to offer here. Any thoughts? Okay, we'll see if we need to refine maybe what constitutes an engineering report down the road as some other things take place. Demolition and construction list update, Susan? Yeah.
Yes, I sent the demolition and the construction and the referral out. I think it was on Thursday. And it's still, if you haven't had a chance to look over it, if you see anything you want changed, it's just a in progress kind of thing, even at the end. So what I did is I sent those all out, and today I sent the tally sheet, which I included the ones starting in 2014 and on. Of course, we had the pause, so we had no meetings in March and April. And the building department, of course, has been using different processes during that time. So you can see we had less demolition applications. We had 22 instead of 33 last year. We objected to 7 and no objection to 13. And had 13 narratives, 2 didn't warrant review. And I think probably because those were repeats, I would have to look why we didn't, why those 2 didn't warrant review. I just go through and I count them up. Then it's interesting because you go down one, was like the owner error, 1 building department, possibly we didn't get a referral. 11 of them, that's a half, for AKRF Historic Resources. I thought that was significant. Getting to the construction applications, we were down to 59 versus 88 and 92. We only objected to 1 of those. 44 of those didn't warrant review due to age or significance. We had 22 narratives. And interesting there are 23 of them that were either to legalize or the work was either in progress or completed. I'm not going to go through the rest of them. Getting into the easement is the place I have to go back to refigure out how many are in progress. Even though I have them listed, I had a little bit different number than I had last year. We do have 1 new town landmark, so that's really significant. 129 is South Road. And we'll have another one. I included that one in progress that started for 149. Of course, it's not complete, it just started. COAs 4. And most of the historic district things are ongoing. But a few of the numbers sort of stand out, but they just are, oh, I'm looking down and there you've got it, Ed. They are, that's the way they count it up. But under COAs, we know the Nathaniel Rogers house is other, it's just going to be needed in the future. We do have Liaison, so that one got counted this year. So that's what
yeah. Did you put Liaison on there?
No, I didn't. It's just under reviewed and approved.
Oh, okay, right.
I count numbers. I go back through the agendas or whatever notes I have, and I just count versus specific ones.
This easement in progress?
The one we'll see, the Nathaniel Rogers, I don't even know if it's in progress because we haven't received it. I just put it under other needed. Last year,
I'm talking about easement in progress.
Oh, easements in progress. So going back up to easements in progress. Yes, if you look at my referral list, we submitted them. When I say they're in progress, we submitted them. The owner, excuse me, we recommended them. The owner submitted them, and we have no really idea what's going on with them. So when I say they're in progress, we haven't received word that they have been turned down. So it's pretty ambiguous to say that they're in progress, but I don't know the status of them.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but maybe the better term is easements in process rather than progress. And then the question mark is, did you have one in mind?
No, not specifically. What happened is, no, when I counted them up, no, I don't have a specific one in mind.
All right.
I just looked at my numbers and that sheet that I showed you and counted.
Right. I thought you were, in other words, this is really an unknown to you. This
Right.
question mark.
It's just,
Okay.
it's an ongoing so it's an ongoing kind of thing. We didn't review any new ones this year. In fact, we did get one easement, even though we didn't review the non-negotiable terms. So I don't
Okay.
explain that. But one person got an easement, and to my knowledge, we never submitted the terms. We never recommended the terms, but they still
Right.
got it, and that's fine.
Right.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep. Okay. Thank you again for all the data collection, analysis, because it will be very useful, I think, as the Landmarks Board tries to move to its having some changes made in the code to deal with certain kinds of problems.
That's all, I present the numbers and I didn't give you a summary, but that's my thoughts on it, but everybody would have a different thought looking at it, but that's what I have. And I do go
Okay.
through the easement again and see if there's a better way to word any of those.
So, all right, the ZBA Planning
Oh.
Board, any news on any applications there?
Right. You look like you have a few people join. I don't know if you had any questions for them before I proceeded.
I have a quick, Susan, you said there was an easement that was, historic preservation easement that was approved that we didn't review. Which one was that?
I think 129 South Road, didn't they receive an easement?
And
I
that
don't
never came to Landmarks?
They're landmarked, so we
No,
landmark.
but we never looked at the terms of the agreement?
No, we didn't. This is, I think, the first one that was done by Lisa Combrink since she's taken over.
Okay.
But I'm not knocking progress.
No, I know. I'm just,
No, a lot of them we reviewed and recommended them, and they're still there in progress.
and also on the Nathaniel Topping house, shouldn't we be issuing the COA before they can start the work?
There was a prior discussion of this, the Nathaniel Rogers House discussion that raised this question. And possibly, yes, it should have been done, but they were operating under a 2011 building permit.
Okay.
And the question was, that clarity of authority was not established for how to get a COA and who was in charge of the historic, the authenticity of the historic restoration. And the Community Preservation Department leadership in the past had often proceeded on the basis of they could figure it out themselves and self-certify through their historic architecture consultants. So that was one source of authority that was there. Subsequent discussions and some newer attitudes indicate, well, perhaps the Landmarks Board should be involved in certifying the restoration in some fashion.
It's not a should, it's a required by the code.
And
Must.
that could take place when the construction was done, because there was some prior precedence. I think Stephanie pointed out to some prior occasion in which that had been done. But so construction is not yet done, and we'll have to await an application from the Community Preservation Department to certify it down the road. And you know, I did notice that the town supervisor in his State of the Town speech said that the Nathaniel Rogers House will be completed this year. This is the 15th year of restoration activity, so fingers should be crossed, I suppose, that that will happen. I see Martha smiling. We have two parties who have signed in. I don't know if there's any business that they are raising their hand for, but Charles would certainly let them in, I believe.
I think Jason would have been here for 18 Halsey Street. He's
They're in.
But there he is.
They're in. They just don't have their video on.
Okay, all right. And okay, so anyway, we are past 18 Halsey Street at this point. The landmarks maintenance grant
Okay,
program. We had two applications.
Okay, do you want me to do the ZBA thing first, my applications?
Do you have something to report? Okay, please.
Yeah, I have a couple. No, I just wanted to make sure some other people, if they needed it before I started, just briefly. I reported that most of them are repeats and of no concern. However, the ZBA, it was on December 17th. I had mentioned 703 Flying Point Road in Watermill. And I did inquire with the secretary, and there are two historic resources on that property. It's Watermill 48, it's in the AKRF. And unfortunately, one of those is going to be proposed for demolition. It would be the one on the right. It's a Burnett house. And this one would have been, they think it's the location of Lot Burnett, the original settler. It's not his house, but that's where they think the location of his lot was. And that also appears again on the ZBA in January 21st coming up, and it's been referred to the planning board. So that one I'll be keeping an eye on. the ZBA on the 21st. It's 376 Main Street in Quiog. It's a 2-lot subdivision. It's referred to as the Ketchum House, I think.
Okay.
There was a AYB of, I looked it up, of 1955, but it's listed in the, I believe, the table of AKRF. There are 2 accessory buildings of 1940, but it's an older home. It's, I think, in more the business district. So that's one you may want to keep an eye on. I'll send that to Stephanie and to Bill tomorrow. I just reviewed that one today. And the planning board on January 14th of this year, there's 376 Main Street was in Eastport. My apologies, Bill.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Okay, 376 Main Street was in Eastport. And it's going to be a 2-lot subdivision. I can't tell you, I can inquire if you would like what may be happening with it, but I don't know it's going to affect any of the structures.
Yeah, why don't we take a look at it first and then let you know?
Want me to? Okay.
We'll take a look at it first and then let you know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, got it. And the 401 Montauk is in Quiog, and it's part of the I think West Hampton Boats. There's one structure has an AYB of 1890, and there's a site plan there that says for a number of things they want to repair and renovate. So that's all I know. You let me know about 376, but I'll send you these tomorrow.
Okay.
That's all I have. Ed.
Okay, fine, thank you. Landmarks Maintenance Award Program. Janet, did we receive 2 applications?
Yes, there was 2 that I sent. One, I think back in December, and there was a new one that I just sent this month.
The new one was at
Hold on, I'll let you know.
It's 121 South Road in West Hampton. It's the Coble House.
right, that one I
Okay.
received. The other one was the Foster House.
Yes, Linda Ewell, 84 Montauk Highway in Watermill.
Oh,
Right.
right here.
Let me see if I can get the this is the project being proposed for the landmark basically, it looks like a window job again. 25, the proposal is 25 Anderson replacement windows. Installing white AZAC PVC trim on the exterior of windows. And basically it's and reshingling where the window replacement has taken place around the edges. They have an estimate for the job of $20,000 that was proposed for the project.
This is the same property we just bought an easement on?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Did we pay for the easement?
What did we pay?
Yeah,
100,000.
the easement was only $100,000?
Yes, that's my understanding. The easement was $100,000.
Okay. And we're entertaining a maintenance award when they just got $100,000 for an easement?
Yeah. No reason why they can't apply.
That's very true.
The easement, right, the easement certainly is an incentive to Landmark. And the Landmark maintenance program is also an incentive to Landmark. So the alternative project, I have forgotten to do the calculation of numbers, but we have put substantial amounts of money into the Benjamin Foster House window replacement project. And I would propose that we give primary consideration to funding this project in this cycle of making an award.
My question is about, I'm not sure what kind of windows they have now. I know in the Foster House, they're replacing non-original windows.
Right. It's the same thing at 121 South Road.
Okay, and they don't have an easement, but Stephanie and Bill, you're much more familiar with this property than I am. So I defer, those are my questions. I always have a problem replacing windows and paying for new ones.
Right.
However, there are exceptions, and so I defer to you and what you think, both of you. So that's my only comment. I find it bothersome, but then if they're replacing non-replacement windows, there are exceptions. So
Right. Well, I think in both cases, they are replacing non-original windows. Both the Watermill project and the project in West Hampton. I mean, the Watermill project, I was looking at the windows that are proposed for replacing, and most of the windows that are proposed for replacing are on the back side of the house.
I noticed that too, and I didn't.
Not visible. Right.
There are a few there that are visible left. I think they were in the top of the front.
Yep. The north
side.
bedroom. Yeah, the north bedroom. I think there was like 4 of them there. Or maybe three of them.
So we can get to that one right next. But I totally, when you're coming back to the one, of course, that we're discussing, I defer to you to explain and let us know what you think. Plus, I think they have the grills, removable grills, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And if you look and see what's there now, they're non-original, and the very last page on their application shows a picture of the house as it used to look, and they're 2/2 windows that were there, and that's what they're proposing to put back is 2/2 windows to appear more period appropriate than what's there now.
How do you feel about that, except like the true divided by wood? I know one time you mentioned they're, of course, easier to clean, but just
Susan, they are actually specifying a divided light with the spacer bar, so it wouldn't be the removable screen. The quote from Riverhead Building Supply says it's a simulated divided light.
Your audio, Tim, is a
Sorry.
problem.
Is this better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The Riverhead Building Supply quote calls out for a simulated divided light with spacer bar, so it would not be the removable grill.
Okay.
No, my initial thought had been to not fully fund either of these proposals, but to partially fund both of them so we keep the incentive in place.
Well, my feeling is that we have provided substantial financial support for the Benjamin Foster House over the last 4 years or 5 years. And that we basically have done our fair share with helping to preserve that house. And I, at this point, would not be in favor of providing funding for the Benjamin Foster House.
I guess, and I would like to see at least where on the front facade, and we did one first floor on the east facade. I think there's one upstairs on the second floor, but to at least try to do, how many, Stephanie, do you have on the on that left wing upstairs? 3 that need to still be.
Yeah, it looks like there are 3 2/2s that are proposed to be replaced with the, 6/6s.
And then that there's 3 2/2s there, and then there's the one on the east side would be the 4th. Those, at least the 3 on the front and possibly the 4th is what I would suggest. Even though we have generously taken care of the other ones, but I would like to see at least some continuity, at least finish up what's seen from the road.
And keeping in mind that Linda Yule didn't get an easement on her house. So she's not, other than what we've provided in the past, which I think, Susan, you had indicated it was $5,000 last year and $12,000 the year before. So we've provided $17,000 so far for window replacement, and she's gone ahead and paid for the rest of it herself each time.
I think it's been more than 17,000.
Yeah, if there were awards in prior years, I don't have that information here. Which I think there probably were. I think you're right, Ed.
I'd have to look up.
Again, if we're going to consider, for Linda Yule in Watermill, yeah, I would suggest the 3 north bedroom windows that face the street and just fund those, which is 1/3 of her proposed project. But that's just my thought on this.
Let's see, the Benjamin Foster House. I don't know if I've updated everything, but Benjamin Foster, what did you have? You had 17,000?
Yeah, I had, according to an email that Susan sent, they were awarded 5,000 in 2020 and 12,000 in 2019. So a total of 17,000 for those 2 years. And it is my recollection that there was an award prior to that, but I don't have that information.
Right. There, prior to that, there was 35,000.
Oh.
I don't think we ever got over 20, so I don't think that can be right. 20 was always the maximum for all the projects together.
She may have applied 4 times though, Susan.
2014.
Oh, right. I just said not 35,001.
2014, 2015, 2016, 2017.
Exactly. That could, adding it up. I don't have that in front of me.
Which house are we talking about? The Foster Downs?
Benjamin Foster House.
Benjamin
in
Foster.
Warville.
Okay, Benjamin Foster got 10,000 on November 12th, 2014. They got 10,000 on February 10th, 2015. They got 15,000 on May 24th, 2016.
And then
5,000 in
2017, right?
and they got 12,000 in 2019.
So that's why, that's basically, I think we have done more than,
That's 52,000 of windows.
right.
I'm not sure. Even though I have Watermill, I have never met the owner and have really had no discussion. I think it was done by our prior chairperson. But has anyone ever discussed an interest in getting an easement with her? Is there? I have not heard that. I'm not sure if she's aware of it. I assume she should be, or but she may not.
I have not. I personally have not had any, a couple of emails and relative to the application and getting paid. Have not had any communication about easement options.
It's already landmarked.
Right, exactly.
They can't demolish it if they wanted to.
Right, but she could get money if she applies for an easement from CPF.
Why would we provide that as an incentive when it's already landmarked?
That it's not us, it's CPF that provides it.
I understand that, but the easement is an incentive to get people to landmark. If it's already landmarked, why would we buy an easement?
It's already, except at the level of protection.
I don't think it was it wasn't available when she landmarked. So if you want her to preserve it,
He has to preserve
use
it
that.
landmarked.
Right, but if to use that money to finish her window project, so
We're heading down a very bad road, because if you want to take away owner consent from landmarking, I don't know. Creates kind of a catch-22. If you don't need owner consent, why do we even need an incentive to landmark anymore?
That we're not there yet.
I understand.
So.
But I think we're creating an impediment to getting rid of the owner consent by putting so much emphasis on the easements and the maintenance awards as an incentive for people. Just my thoughts. Some other people think the same way.
I wasn't sure when this was proposed a number of years ago, and it was somebody's really like their program they came up with. I was really surprised how many people were interested in it. And it seemed like it was an incentive to landmark. We had another one. They did the actually restoration of the windows in their house and landmarked it. That was, several years ago. But I was really pleasantly surprised that providing a total of $20,000 in 1 year was an incentive. It was for the Squires house. I think they got maybe, you can see that. And of course, we had the train station also. Theirs were all, the same time they were landmarked, they were applying for those. So I was surprised, but pleasantly.
Well, getting back to the proposition, let's deal with one at a time. Let's deal with the Coble House that we had here with a proposal of window replacement. Are we in favor of that? Basically, I would recommend some level of funding for it at this point in time, not necessarily the full $20,000 that is the bottom line that has been proposed.
Just for clarification here, what I see in this application is 20,000 for the labor plus 16 and some change for the windows, plus the dumpster fee. And then there's some additional costs for waterproofing materials and spray foam, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I mean, I don't see where the specific ask is here, whether it's just the 20 or whether that's the whole thing. I would assume it's the whole thing because that's what it's going to take to get the job done.
Right.
Well, the other, of course, what we encouraged when we got a big application from another applicant was doing it in phases.
Yep.
And that may also be an option for this applicant, depending upon how much we might be willing to support in maintenance of this landmark.
Well, maybe what we want to consider then is funding replacement of half of them, maybe the ones that are most visible from the street.
I would, how does this idea sound? Support at the level of $10,000 from the landmarks maintenance account, with the obligation of the applicant to provide at least a matching amount in executing the project.
Right, so they would match 10 grand or more. We would pay 10, and which would mean they'd probably do half their windows.
Or they could do all the windows.
And pay more than 10 on their side.
Right.
We should tell them what they have to do with the amount of money. It makes no sense to give them half the money and them not spend it appropriately. So we should say what we expect for the money.
Well, we expect that they will do the project as they've outlined here.
So do all the windows, even though we're giving half the money rather than half the windows for all the money.
That's a condition of the grant, and matching funds for the project.
So not just the 20,000, the 36,000.
No, I think what we're saying here is we give them 10 and we expect them to kick in at least 10, and they can kick in more if they can afford it. And they do as much as they can for 20,000 or, more if they can afford more on their end.
Do we say that you want the street side or the what's visible done first?
I don't think you can tell them because there might be there might be issues.
Oh, you're right. There could be.
I think we have to leave it to them, but it seems to me that they need to do, if we're going to pay half, we should pay half the windows and half the materials for half the project. And then they should match and do the whole house rather than leaving it in the condition that it is. I mean, I'm not saying we should give them the money at all because we've given them a lot of money, but I don't know the history.
Yeah.
But the money should only go for this specific reason.
Right. Well, the money that we've given them in the past has come out of, CPF from their designated historic preservation funds. The funding for this is coming out of our monies that we got as part of the whole Bayberry Land mess from years ago. So this is our fund to do with as we see fit.
And what proportion of the fund is it that we have?
We're presently, David, have you recently thought about how much money was in that account?
Yeah, and I'm looking for that report right now.
I'm just curious, if we have only so much money to spend, is this how you want to spend it?
We've dispersed 106,715.
And more than half of that, or just about half of that went to one house.
Yeah,
Yep.
the total funding from the town board has been $200,000 since 2011, and we've spent 106,000.
Okay.
So we've only spent about half of it in 10 years.
It should be noted that the fund was generated from the planned development district for the Sabonic Golf Course.
Yeah.
And that fund is applied to a number of cultural and historical purposes for the town of Southampton. So it's not taxpayer funds.
I think it's just
Development.
the Landmarks Board and the grave protection.
As I
The
said,
other,
it's cultural and historical.
Well, I think if we're going to give them any money, from my personal view, we should give them, if we're going to give them half, we should give them half of the total project, but then they have to do the total project. Because what you're talking about is giving them a 25% grant. I don't know if you feel that's enough, then that's enough. I'm not knowledgeable to know that that's, because it's 10,000 of, but it's basically a $40,000 project. No point having the windows without the labor to put them in, or vice versa. And have we seen the windows?
Have we seen the replacement windows?
Yeah.
These windows are defined in the proposal.
My mistake. So you're happy with what they are?
That's what is being specified in the proposal, yes.
Bill, are you a window person? I think Tim is. When I read the 400 series, I would have to research a lot to figure out exactly what type of windows here we're talking about. But I believe you probably are more familiar with the description and what would be appropriate.
Right. So a 400 series Anderson window is a vinyl clad window. The window quote does say that it's a permanently applied grill. So it won't be a snap-in. It won't be something that's just between the glass or just on the inside. It'll be on the outside with a spacer bar. Simulated divided light is what they call it. It's as close as you're going to get with insulating glass to a true divided light look. Once the screens go on, that's typically a one-piece screen on the outside. It's often difficult from the street to really discern what is the grill, what is the detail of the window. The difference is that right now the window has a flat casing on the outside. There will be a second piece to that because the Anderson window has about a 7/8 of an inch portion of it that will show, and the casing will be pushed up alongside of it. So it will change the detail a little bit, but definitely having new windows, energy efficient windows, windows that will never need painting, is all going to be a plus in maintaining the look of the house.
And I think, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they have triple track storm windows on many of their windows now, which are not particularly attractive and certainly
Right.
not historically appropriate.
Yes, so going with the newer windows with the insulating glass is going to give them the ability to get rid of those. There's definitely more than 25 windows in the house. So I'm assuming that the windows that they're changing are all in the front portion, with the back portions being newer additions. Is it something that we could ask them which windows they're replacing?
These 2/2, is that similar to what we see in that last picture?
Yes, yep, that photo, that sort of sepia tone photo that was at the end of the
Yeah.
application, yes, is a 2/2 window. Yep, there it is. Except for up in the gable ends there, where it's like a 16 light
Right.
with colored glass in the sashes. Multiple different colors.
We should go back to Susan's original point then, that we should do the windows that are seen. If you're saying we're not doing all the windows, then they should specify what they're doing.
Right. As you're looking at this photo, there are just about 13 windows if you add up the front and what is the right side of the main original portion of the house. So you could assume that there'd be 12 or 13 on the other side. That would probably be the 25 they're talking about. The lower roofed sections in the back are 2 different additions that were done to the house. Those windows are a lot of different sizes, and they don't appear to be the ones that are in the Riverhead Building Supply window quote. So, but it would be good, for us to probably nail down which windows are they planning on replacing, so that we know for sure.
And there's no reason we can't ask them for that information.
Okay.
Well, we would have to, basically, we're in a phase of kind of negotiating on this with the applicant. Maybe we could put off discussion of this, final discussion, and make some inquiries and take this up again in February.
Okay.
Does that sound okay with Paul? And we might be able to actually have them participate and describe things, given the context that has been defined so far for the idea that there's possible funding for this project. So we'll investigate and get some further information. And the question is, who is there an agent who would want to volunteer for this, or is it going to be something I should take up?
I'm happy to talk to them if I'm just making an inquiry. I don't want to, I'm not experienced enough to have a view, but I'm happy to go back for a bit more detail.
Right. Either that, or I would suggest Bill do it, since he, did all the documentation on this structure for the landmark application.
Yeah, and I can pull up the photos and figure out how many windows and whatnot and try and get a specific answer from her. Yeah, that'd be fine. I'll do it.
Okay, and you have a kind of a feel for where we want to go, I think, with our discussion here. So,
yep.
Okay, that's good. I think also, something to consider in the future, in the sense that we are considering these projects. There might be a better framework for discussing the funding of these projects than our present procedure. But we'll work on thinking about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now, as I indicated, I had strong reservations for further funding for the Benjamin Foster project. Any thoughts from my fellow board members here about that?
I just said I'd like to see at least finish the front part. at some point. I'm not sure what that totals up window wise. But there are 3 on that front east section. I mean, excuse me, it's the east, but it faces Montauk Highway.
Yeah. It's the north side.
Possibly the one over on the east side, it's above a bedroom. But those would be the ones that I personally would like to see, since it's almost there. But after that, that's just my thought.
Yeah. I guess after recognizing that we have already allocated $52,000 to window replacement for this particular house, and I also took a look at the relative cost per window for Linda Yule's application for the Watermill House versus the Coble application we just looked at. And the cost per window is definitely seems to be more for the Linda Yule house. So I guess given the considerations that we've already paid out $52,000 of this fund to this particular house, I guess I'm a little bit more reluctant to give out more funding.
And I respect, I respect the consensus of the board. I'm not personally invested in this house or with the applicant. It's
So if there's no further comments, I will advise the applicant, Linda Yule, that we would not be proceeding with any funding this year.
Or do we want to wait and decide next month when we decide the one down 129?
Well, that's an issue of a proportionate number of windows and which windows, I think.
If you want to if we want to make the decision this month, I'll go with whatever the consensus of the group is. So that's.
Well, I don't hear anyone saying other than your suggestion, that we should wait further on informing the applicant about what will take place.
If we're not happy to do it, we should say so and move on, tell her.
Okay, all right. So I will indicate to Linda Yule that we won't be funding this application this year. And that puts the context in. Nothing for the landmarks maintenance grants for nonprofits. Basically, that's drafting a set of rules that still remains to be done. I've not had any conversation with the CPF with respect to easements. There are a number of things on our relationship with the CPF that needs to be addressed. I will still, with now almost 2 years into the Madu certificate of appropriateness, which has not been yet issued because the revision of the easement is on hold. And that is still something that I've been trying to work through with CPF.
Yeah, I think this matter is more upon us now because we should be working with CPF on the terms for the easement for 149 South Country Road in Remsenburg.
Well, you're right, and I will see if I can make a point of that in a communication.
Yeah.
these encumbering.
And also I had it under, you know, the new business, I mean, other matters, but it's at 15 and 17 Old Country Road in Watermill that's being proposed for public park space, which would precipitate the demolition of a historic resource. It seemed like Stephanie suggested a few proposals. I can think of several others that there seemed like there should be something working with CPF. We could possibly preserve that, and Watermill would still be able to, if CPF is interested in that property, I maybe get what they're looking for too, but maybe there could, but if we don't speak up, I don't think CPF will know that there's possibly a historic resource on that property.
Ed, I think we can set up a meeting with Lisa. If you guys can send me an agenda of items that you want to discuss with her, we can arrange a Zoom meeting. Let me know what days you're available, and we can get that set up pretty quickly.
Okay, well, thanks for the suggestion, Dave. I'll let you know there's some other things too in the background that are that have been put forward. So the list might be quite long. So
that have to do with CPF?
Yes.
Yeah, let's get them out there. Put together an agenda, send it to me, and Janice's office will set up a meeting with Lisa.
Okay. Any other business to be brought before the board? Susan, you already mentioned your concern about the potential development of a park on land there's an advocacy group for CPF to purchase it.
Right.
Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
There's just one thing, and it's a website, Preservation Long Island, and one of their latest brochures. They have a local landmark law locator that they said that's new. It's ArcGIS online. If any individual or anyone's interested in comparing local landmarks, it is trying to think, Preservation Long Island .org/location-intro. But I thought there are a lot of times we've tried to work. I'll send that to you, Janice, so you know what exactly that is. But a lot of times we do a whole lot of research trying to compare when we're trying to come up with wording for something, but it seemed like for our area, they said it's the first thing that is available. So that's my comment.
Okay. There has been I want to just alert the board to additional conversations that have been generated in the past month relating to a stronger code development in order to provide for better preservation, historic preservation in the town. And that involves the prospect of one, designating landmark designation and historic district designation that do not provide for or do not require owner consent for those to be accomplished. And secondly, that the Landmarks Board be kind of elevated, or the town of Southampton be elevated with the Landmarks Board to become a certified local government under New York State regulation and under federal rules, so that it would be more successful in historic preservation. it requires a number of things. I sent out the document that New York State puts out for certified local government standing for historic preservation, and ask that you look at it. And potentially, if the will is here on the board at this point in time, we could approach the town board and ask for their initiative to apply and provide for the necessary code changes that would allow the town of Southampton to be a certified local government. Just to apprise you, the village of Southampton is a certified local government. And so is the village of Sag Harbor. So this is not an unknown standard for historic preservation activity in our region. And there are other towns in the area that also do have that standing, but the town of Southampton does not have that in place. And the question is, should we promote it and advance it as a prospect for the town of Southampton? I don't know if you have immediate reaction, but any thoughts at this point in time can be entertained.
I would be all for it. I just see a few aspects that may be a difficult sell. But I mean, personally, of course, I think it, but I just saw a few things that have to be agreed to that may present some difficulties.
I'm very much for it. I really think it's a very, very good idea. It's working very successfully for the village of Southampton. And I think, Ed, you and I had talked about this when I first joined the board. And I think at that time, Jay was very favorably disposed. I think you'd had a brief discussion or several discussions with him. So I would like to see this pursued.
Okay, well, it's been suggested that, among other things, we initiate a presentation to the town board in order to explain the idea and to provide the context for this to happen. Is somebody willing to take the lead on this, to be the voice of the Landmarks Board in preparing a presentation that can be brought to the town board?
I'm happy to work with you on that. Yes.
You don't want to work alone on that?
I'm happy to do it. If you think I'm up to it, I'm happy to do it. I think it's a very, very good idea. I really I'm 100% behind it.
Okay, well, I'll be glad to assist you in
Thank you.
bringing it to the fore.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to advance it. We have somebody with their hand up, and Julie, you would have to unmute yourself so we can hear you. We can see you, but is Charles there to
do it? Oh,
okay,
now I got it. There we go. Okay, well, there certainly is community support for it. That's
well, that's good.
We're seeing in Bridgehampton one little home after another being demolished and replaced, historic homes I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And replaced with things that are not exactly fit into the neighborhoods.
I agree, and one of the parties whom you may be familiar with, Tom Watson.
Yeah, sure.
Did raise this issue with myself, and he has previous background in the town of Hempstead, which has a fairly strong landmarks commission, and had been involved in landmarking within that area of Long Island, Nassau County. And so he was surprised to find out how weak the town of Southampton code is with respect to historic preservation, and had brought this issue a little bit to the fore with the idea that things should be changed. So we'll see what comes of our initiative to develop a presentation to the town of Southampton board with respect to strengthening the code. Given my survey of the materials about a certified local government, there's a lot of stuff that we have already had done that doesn't have to be done or accomplished. For example, it requires having a survey of historic resources. So we have that in place. It requires having a certain kind of body with some authority. Well, we have the body in place, but not the authority.
Yeah.
So you need staggered terms, you need some expertise, people who are trained to some degree or have demonstrated interest in historic preservation. We have pretty much a board constituted with that population. So a lot of stuff is there. It's just that some things need to be perfected and refined, perhaps, as well as making the jump to having the standard that to have a historic district or to have a landmark, you do not have to have the owner consent for that to take place initially. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay. Well, there is community support, certainly in Bridgehampton. I know that, and I'm sure other places too.
Well, we hope so, and we'll have to. We may have to have a little survey taken to find out from community representatives how much support they see for this kind of project for the public good of looking after the historical character of our lovely communities on the east end of Long Island. So anything else to bring up? If not, Dave?
Yeah. Membership, we need to get a list of or maybe we did that. Did you do that?
We
already?
did that. We did that, and the town board will be working very slowly in its meeting schedule to get to that. So that relates to the appointments of members for the coming year.
Right. I'm confusing my other boards with your board, and I forgot that you guys had already done that. So you got to jump on everybody else. That's good.
Well, you're excused for your confusion.
Boards.
Okay. If there's no other business, the meeting will be adjourned.
Thank you.
Hearing no other business.
No, I missed the
Nope.
first 30 seconds. Susan, did you mention something about vaccines?
Yes, it was CVS and Fenimore Regis.
Oh, they have it now? Because last night they didn't.
You have to be online about 9:45 to about 10 o'clock and click it every few minutes and get in the waiting room first.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And don't leave the waiting room.
And thank you, Susan, for your public service.
Yeah.
That's it, right.
Providing that information.
That's a digital waiting room.
Right.
Hopefully they'll let
Online,
you in.
very confusing now. Is it
Okay.
physically online or online?
It's all online, so you can't make them in person.
Yeah.
By the way, I before we sign off, I want to thank both Dave and Janet for being there to pick up some of the loose ends that periodically have occurred in the past year. This has been a very trying kind of episode of a year of Zoom meetings. And things have been processed, and pretty much we've done, I think, a fairly good job. But part of that depends upon David Wilcox and having Janet as well behind us. So thank you both for being there for the Landmarks Board.
Very much.
You're welcome.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.